Holy shit. What a fucking episode, dude. What a fucking episode of Severance, episode 9. No, I haven't been doing these, for the previous episodes. Haven't really been a, episode review kind of guy, but this show is so fucking good, dude. I have to talk about it, and I'm probably going forward, definitely going to start doing these. Now, I'm not one of these, I'm not going to be getting into, like, the screenshots and the Easter eggs. I'm just a raw, like, emotion motherfucker, bro. Like, I'm just a raw emotion motherfucker. So, that's just what I'm going off of. But holy shit, dude. Episode 9 of Severance, just amazing television, my friend. Amazing television. Got to give a round of applause. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about where I kind of see things going, and just, opinions, so on and so forth. So, this episode, we really dive deeper, as deep as I think we've ever dove into the idea of this show about a character who's really split into two characters. And that's always what's made it interesting, from the jump. But this episode goes into that, like, so deep, dude. And it really highlights, like, just these, two distinct characters, and also questions how different those characters are, which is amazing because, again, this show, kind of showing, like, the innies and the outies, and how the innies really were, like, these childlike, innocent beings that really were not tainted by the outside world. For the most part, had gratitude, and were happy very easily because they just didn't have anything to compare it to. So just getting, like, little trinkets, pencil sharpeners, pencil erasers, from little competitions, just, like, made the innies, like, super happy. So, it's like, it reflects so much, too. I know I'm going to get off on a little bit of a tangent, so I do apologize. As someone who's, like, worked in corporations, I can't stress, like, how much this show hits at home. Like, hits at home. I can't stress it enough. In so many different levels. And I think this is a good show, even if you haven't worked in that corporate structure. But, like, they cover it. I've never seen a show cover this as well as it does. Especially, these are people, the people who are rating this show. I don't know if Ben Stiller's ever worked into, like, a 9-to-5 corporate environment. Obviously, he does business for gigantic Hollywood studios, which are corporations in their own right. But, like, it is a different thing being, like, a worker bee, clocking in, and clocking out, and, just having that shift and whatever the case is, and that whole, like, hierarchy environment. But it highlights it so well. And what I love that this episode really showed, is how like, a supervisor and, like, the staff below the supervisor get pitted against each other by upper management. And, like, Milchick, he's trying to keep a smile on his face, and he has to keep this demeanor for the innies and make the innies, feel super welcome. And even when he's in disciplinary mode, he has to have this smile. He has to have this, like, calming face, even when he's saying things that are very, like, like, not calm, right? He's saying things that are threatening almost, but saying it with a smile, and, wording things a certain way. And so he's doing that, because he's, corporate trained to do so, because the innies are being taught to say things. Like, if they start saying something with a negative tone, they get corrected, and no, you should say it like this. You shouldn't say it in a negative way. And that's very much how like corporate culture is, where it's like a corporation that I've worked for, when someone needs an improvement or something is negative, you say that it's an opportunity. This is an opportunity to change. This is an opportunity to do something different than what you've been doing. So it's like it's rewriting language. And it's so interesting showing how similar a corporation can be to a cult by the culture that they develop and the mythology and everything. I mean, it's scary how similar Lumen is to real life corporations. If you've worked for like a big corporation and you've been like a 9-to-5 worker bee, you know 100% what I'm talking about. I think people who, you know, work in more of a freelance area or maybe even more blue collar kind of structured work, it's a different thing. Not to say that there's not like grunt stuff going on and just the daily grind, and you know, it's not about like one has it better, one has it worse, but it's like I feel like in the corporate structure and like the 9-to-5 structure, they psychologically fuck with your head like so bad. Like it's like they're rewiring your brain, and it's like it's not only like training you for the job, but it's like retraining you as a human to where, you know, like your regular life gets impacted and like how you view the world. And I know I'm really like tangenting on right now, but like there's this video of this guy who like works in customer service, and his wife is like filming him while he's sleeping, and he's like snoring really loud, and she's like, you know, hey, you know, you're snoring, like, you know, wake up. And then he's like at work, he's like, hey, well, it's Bob, how can I help you today? And then like, you know, he goes back to snoring, and then she's like waking up again. He's like, oh, well, I was glad to help you today, you have a wonderful day. But it's like, as someone who's worked in that, you know, environment and that structure, that's not an exaggeration. Like, I'll be talking to people and I'll have to catch myself, you know, stopping that voice. So it's, or like I'll be on the call as I'll be a customer on the phone with customer service, and my brain will start thinking I'm the one doing the customer service, and like I'll be like, well, how can I help you today? And they're fucking supposed to be helping me. So it just goes to show how much like this kind of the corporate culture, the corporate training structure, how much it like fucks with a person's brain and rewires it, and it's very cult-like. And Severance does I mean, I've never seen a TV show cover this the way that they do. Absolutely amazing. You know, so kind of diving into more of the episode itself, now that I guess my personal kind of rant is over. You know, we really are focusing on this episode is Helly and Dylan seem to be like the primary focus. You know, there's obviously some of that focus with Mark trying to go through the final steps of integration. But really it's like the moments that really like blew me away, I think, were the a lot of the scenes with you know, Helly and Dylan, and like Dylan you know, having that whole relationship with his Audi's wife. But it's like in the show, because they basically are looked at as two different human beings. They're two different, and that's if the innies are even considered to be human beings in the first place, but definitely two separate persons, two separate consciousnesses. And so it's essentially looked at like Dylan's wife is cheating on him with his innie. And in a way, like it's kind of like, I did kind of have like a chuckle at it, but you know, when you put yourself in that show, in that character's shoes, this is the world that they're living in, where innies are basically separate people. And in a way, the Audi is like having to agree to give their innie certain privileges, just like a child. I mean, like the innie is kind of like their child, like they're dropping their child off at daycare. And so Dylan's innie got the privilege of seeing his wife. And then, they have kind of a fling. Gretchen, I think, is Dylan's wife's name. Starts having feelings for Dylan's innie. And Dylan's innie, like, falls in love with her. And Dylan's innie's never experienced the feeling of love before. He's never really experienced human beings that were outside of Lumen. So there's probably so many new feelings that Dylan G's character has from this relationship of Gretchen coming there. And so, when Dylan's outie gets, so upset that he threatens to quit, which would effectively kill Dylan G. And so Gretchen is like, I love this person. I love this character that is any Dylan. So I have to save his life. And the only way to save his life is to tell him that I can't see him anymore. But therefore, you've taken, once the innie, and this kind of goes full circle to what I was talking about earlier about, how before with the innies, before they really experienced the outside world or really knew what all the world was and could offer, they were happy with just little things, just little compliments, just erasers and markers and 5-cent whatever water games that the little girl plays. That would make them happy. But once any Dylan experiences like love from the outside world, he doesn't want, like, the any life. There's nothing that they could give him in the any world that's worth him living for. So he would rather, after experiencing that love and knowing that he will never as an any get to have that again, it's like it's not worth living for anymore. He's ready to die because it's just, he doesn't see a purpose of life at that point. And that was really powerful. I get my water on here. And then we see this kind of transpire with Bert and Irving's relationship where, Bert knows that he's basically like, he's left with a choice, right? And it's kind of like a flip in reverse, almost a more literal situation of what happened with Dylan and Gretchen, where Gretchen, if she kept having this affair with Dylan's innie, then Dylan would just, possibly quit the job, and then that would effectively kill Dylan, even though physically he wouldn't be killed, but his being would be killed. Where outie Bert and outie Irving, they can kind of feel those feelings that their innies had with each other. But Bert, who basically it seems like was kind of a fixer, I'm assuming, for Lumen, where maybe he didn't, kill people, he didn't pew people directly. He was helping facilitate those situations. So if somebody got out of hand with, an ex-Lumen employee or someone that Lumen needed to make disappear, Bert would help disappear them, as they say. And, Bert would rather Irving live and them not have any contact with each other, because Bert knows that his choice is either Irving disappears and gets to stay alive, or Bert has to help disappear him like he's done so many people in the past, which means he has to physically kill Irving. And we've already seen any Irving be killed, right? So this whole episode, especially because I just watched the most recent episode of Daredevil, which I'm assuming I'm going to be doing some Daredevil coverage. Seeing how that episode ended, I was totally expecting, someone with a silencer to creep up behind Irving and, that it was lights out. But they kind of gave him a happy ending, which was nice. But I think that we'll be seeing Irving again, because Irving's Audi is a very like rebellious, stern, needs a cause to die for kind of character, like revolutionary. Like he's him and Audi, and this is another part of the show that's just so fascinating to me, is even though they're showing things, and I think this episode where your innie and your Audi, can have these similarities in terms of personality, but how those personalities develop in terms of like the people they are can be so different. Where, Irving's innie was very like corporate, by the book, suit and tied up, like was all about the Lumen mythology, took it extremely serious, did not question anything. Where his Audi was like an artist, was very rebellious, wouldn't go to, would stay up super late, and it would negatively impact any Irving, right? So, it's that kind of thing is really interesting. And then the the scene that I think like hit me the hardest is after Dylan G's Annie is just he's at his wit's end, right? It's over. He doesn't have any hope. He's not gonna like do this thing of trying to overthrow Lumen or uncover any more mystery. He just doesn't care anymore. He's like, I've lost. There is nothing I can do, because what's gonna happen? I take down Lumen and I die anyway, right? When if he leaves that building, he's dead. But this is I kind of get into a theory of how the show ends. But so anyway, like Dylan and Helly are having this conversation at the cubicle, and Helly is like, well, she's not your wife, that's your Audi's wife, you can find someone down here, which is a really cruel thing to say. And it's basically like, don't even try to like have hope for anything out there, focus on in here. Like, and Helly's kind of basically saying like, this is your life in here. And in a way, this is something her Audi would say, or management from Lumen would say, is that the innies belong inside, right? They don't belong in the outside world. Now, Helly's saying it in like a way of trying to unite the innies, and probably looking at it like, if he's distracted with this Audi to turn him against his innie coworkers, which was 100% true. That whole family room and having Gretchen visit was 100% a way to keep the raps on Dylan and keep him kind of separated from the group. So she's not wrong about that. But I think like, it makes Dylan go, it's your fault that we're down, that this is even happening in the first place. Like it was such like a snap out of it moment, where it's like, oh yeah, this is like, we're like cheering for this character, and like these any characters, right? The show revolves around them, but it's all a game in a way. It's like they're almost playing pretend, and these characters aren't real, and like this all would have never happened. I don't think it was like Helen's fault herself, but her becoming like the CEO, basically, she has a lot of power and she could completely stop this from happening. And she's continuing to play along, even though she is her innie now. When she goes down there, she's still choosing to go down there every day. So it's a great, like, it's almost like what it all kind of reminds me of is just kind of like, and again, something I was talking about earlier about how like management creates this hierarchy, but they want like the lowest level of management, like the supervisor level, to stay at odds with the staff level. So they put all this pressure on the supervisor level to keep the staff in line, right? But then you can't talk to the staff a certain way. When you discipline them, you have to discipline them a certain way. You have to talk to them a certain way, and you can't come off too harsh. So they're like, it puts supervisors, and this is why I do not want to be a fucking supervisor, puts supervisors in this like impossible box to where they have to be disciplinarians, but the way that they have to discipline is like in this structure that almost has them, their hands tied behind their back. And and all they're doing, the supervisors are just doing, like, when they're disciplining their staff, they're not doing it because they want to, they're doing it because their management is telling them to. And then you'll have these situations, which I've seen all the time in like corporate meetings, where the management above the supervisors, they'll be like all smiley and acting all nice. And, oh, like, how's everybody doing? Oh, I know that you guys have been working really hard. We hear your concerns, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, the supervisor level has to be the ones to deliver, the harsh news, but they have to deliver it in a certain way. And then they have this, big meeting where the upper management will be there, the staff, the supervisors, and the upper management is acting like the nice guys, right? Oh, acting like the supervisors sometimes are being too tough, or, they don't say that directly, but kind of, like they make sure they look like the good guys because they don't want the negative blowback. So the supervisors are doing really the dirty work because they're just delivering the news. They're delivering the new rules. They're delivering the new quarterly objectives. It's not the supervisors that are running the company, right? They're just there for a paycheck like the staff is. So, it's it kind of that Milchick thing, like he was put in that impossible position for so long, and he just finally snapped, and he realized that they need him. And it's a very powerful feeling to have when, after you've been like just, shitted on by your superiors for so long and disrespected, but then you do the math and you realize, like, without me, these people are fucked. And just like I need the people below me to do a job so I get a good review, they need me to do a good job so they get a good review. And it all fucking is all connected from the top to the bottom, right? So, it was all like a full circle thing. And it was just, those moments were just like, were super powerful. And kind of the Helena, whatever her Audi's name was, that like really hit me, because it's like, it is kind of like the executive level coming into the meeting and playing the good guy. But when they leave that meeting, they're the ones that are making all the rules that make life hell for the people on the bottom level. So, they might give them trinkets and little things like that, but it's an act. So it's, in a way, in the real life, when you're in like these big corporate meetings and the executive person is in there smiling and acting like they're on your side, it's like it's their innie that's doing that. That's not the real them. And just putting those things together is just like super amazing writing. And just, I don't think Ben Stiller came up with a lot of this stuff. I think he's doing a lot of the camera work, the directing, which he's amazing at. All, props to him. But whoever is doing a lot of the writing definitely like was working for one of these kind of corporations, because I've just never seen it be explained and put together how, corporations act like cults. Because if you haven't worked for like a corporation with the corporate culture, it might just be like a clock in, clock out kind of job, right? I know that there's some companies, they don't waste too much time with a lot of the bullshit. It's just like, you're coming there to do a job, they know, you're leaving. That's it. Where, if you work for some of these like bigger, corporations, especially like the corporations that do a lot of the DEI stuff, because all that's about culture. All that's about, we hear you, we recognize you, we're a family here, right? We're a family. That type of shit, that is like, that's what Lumen is. The work-life balance, right? All that type of shit where they say these nice things, but in practice, it's not really the case. In the real world, of it, it's like you're walking through fucking landmines working for these corporations, because everybody's got this like corporate face on. Nobody's showing any real emotion. So it's hard to know like what is the right move sometimes. And it's just a mind fuck. And it's just, the show covers it in an amazing way. Now, all that being said, where do I think the show is going? What do I think like the end result of the show is going to be? So what my long-term theory is, because I think, there's all these kind of short-term theories about, what Lumen is doing with Gemma. Is Gemma a clone? Is that the real Gemma? Did Gemma ever die? I guess if I was going to say anything about that, I'm going to say she never died. What I think happened is that she obviously was trying really hard to get pregnant. She was going to Lumen, doctors and all this kind of stuff. And they probably talked her into doing, hey, if you do these kind of tests, we can help you get pregnant or something. I think that's why she volunteered for it. And, they probably, like, if Mark says that he did see her dead body, they probably had her in on it, so on and so forth. Because I think we all thought with how they were, covering her death with, like, the car accident and everything like that, that Mark, especially with, his drinking, that he was driving and then he caused the car accident, and that's why he's so fucked up about it. But he wasn't with her at all. She just went out to see a play or whatever it was and then just never came back. So I do think that I am leaning more that it's always been her. But if he completes the Cold Harbor file, then she does have to die. So I think that's probably correct. In terms of long term, this is what I think is gonna happen. So really, if you look at this show and you kind of look at it in the sense of like the innies are characters and the outies are characters, and if you're like picking, and I know there's so much nuance in literature and TV and stories, but really, you always, you kind of have like a protagonist and an antagonist. You have a good guy, a bad guy. And in a sense, the innies are the good guys. Their outies put them in that situation. The outies don't give a shit about their existence. You see that more with Dylan. You did see that, Mark acted that way. Helena acted that way. So, Irving even, with him staying up all night and then his outie or his innie having to suffer the next day at work. So they were always really shitty to their innies. Their innies were basically their slaves. So I do see it happening where, this whole integration thing with whatever that actually means. I think I see it where the innies are like, we don't want to lose our identity. We don't want to lose our lives to these outies. So I think we're going to end up with some kind of war where it's like, who's going to actually survive? And the innies are going to do everything they can to just fully take over their outie body. So the outies are going to be completely gone and take over everything. And the innies will fully replace them versus the outies having the power to completely delete the innies. That's what I think, like, the long term, where things are going to go long term. We only have, I think, an episode left of this season, so they're probably not going to go there yet. And I'm assuming this is going to be a 5-season show, so something like that probably we wouldn't, see happen till the end of the series. But all in all, amazing show. I mean, an amazing episode. There's been, some really slow episodes this season. I do have critiques with the season overall, just because the first, 4 episodes were really slow. Then the show starts picking up for 2 episodes, or 3 episodes, I should say, starts getting good. And then the Cobell episode, which again was a necessary episode, I still think they could have did it a different way because it was super slow. It was a super slow episode. I would have, I would have, in that episode, I would have probably cut scenes from people, from other cast and other characters as we were seeing scenes of Cobell, going through her hometown and that whole journey, because it was only that, and even though it was very important to the show, it just felt super slow. So that would have been, like most of the episodes, they are cutting back and forth between characters, and we're seeing, little pieces of different things. They really should have done that episode, but, that was fine. And then, the Gemma episode was one of the best episodes in television ever. That'll probably win an award. This most recent episode, one of the best episodes of the series. And I think that's what frustrates me, because if you have 2 episodes in a whole season that are just amazing, just movie quality, like could stand on their own, then you have the ability to like make every episode good. It's just maybe you lose, like maybe you don't have like 2 amazing episodes. It would be way better to have like every episode be the same quality and not try to stretch out episodes for no reason. Instead, put some of the stuff that happened in Jenna's episode, throughout more episodes, and the Cobell stuff and so on and so forth. So that would have been my take. I'm hoping, we're at episode 9, so next week, episode 10, it's got a lot to live up to, because this most recent episode and the Gemma episode were so amazing, so they really got to go out with a bang and a big reveal, and I think that we have to see, Mark and Gemma, united at that. I mean, it's all been leading up to that, so if they don't do that, for that final episode of the season, that would be a really miss, a bummer. Obviously, the series has to continue, so there has to be a cliffhanger. But we got to have them reunite at the end of next episode. So that's everything. That's my rant about Severance episode 9 and Severance as a whole. I am going to probably do another one of these next week after episode 10. Probably going to do some Daredevil content as well. So peace and love. God bless. And until the next time.